Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vinyl Rewind podcast, and today I have a very special guest. He is one half of this band right here, Pulsars. They are a 90s band that if you were lucky enough, you heard them back in the day, but if you're like me, you're just finding about them now. But late is better than never, and so please welcome Dave Trumfio. Thank you so much.
Eric.
For being
Thanks for
here.
having me.
Yeah, so I can't wait to get into this record, and really I want to discuss like how this came about, because you go on Wikipedia and it's just like, wait, what? You had this multi-million-dollar or $1 million record deal with Herb Alpert? Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, it's a story.
So let's go back to the beginning. Like, how did this band begin? It was you and your brother.
We played in bands since we were little. Like we started our first band when we were like 9 and 10.
But what was different about this?
First of all, it was just a two-piece.
Right.
So, and this is like before laptops, this is before the White Stripes.
This is early. What year? It was like 93, 94?
We started fiddling with it around 93, 94, and then 95 is when we had I think our 7-inch came out at the end of 94, and then one of our first EPs came out in 95. The record came out in 97.
So take me back a little bit, because you ended up, I'm blanking on the name, but Herb Alpert had a newer label after
ALMO Sounds. By the time we got approached by them, it was already in the 90s. Like we started talking to them in the 90s.
But how did that even happen? Like, how did you get that introduction? Like, how did
pretty interesting. I mean, Pulsars was the first band Harry and I, my brother who plays drums, we did where we were like, we're not going to try to get gigs. We're not going to like try to get a record deal. We're not going to try. Right. We're not going to take a promo photo. We're not going to do a bio. We're just going to make this music that is kind of a guilty pleasure. Like very like short pop nuggets, synth, like indie rock synth nuggets, I guess. I mean, we grew up listening to 45s, our dad's 45 collection. So we grew up with like Chess and all the
Sun
Records. So we grew up with like the whole concept of a 3-minute song on a 7-inch. So like that was our earliest, like from like 5, 6, 7, 8, we would just be playing these 7-inches all the time. And so, through our kind of like life of being in bands from when we started our first band when we were like 9 and 10 to like through our teenage years, the goth years, and the noise rock years of the early 90s, like the kind of like Steve Albini-esque like noise bands we played in and stuff. We're like, hey, let's just get back to like just writing pop music, and like, who cares? We're not going to try to get gigs. We know it's not cool. At the time, it was either you're in a guitar band or you're in a synth band. There's no, like, this is like in the 90s, it was like indie rock was guitar. If you had a synth in there, it's like, whoa, it's a little suspect.
Like the Cars did it, it's over.
That's from like the late 70s, early 80s, I mean, and a lot of our influencers are from that late 70s, early 80s, kind of like new wave post-punk. So we just started this band, and at a certain point, we had about 10 tunes cooking. Yeah. And we're like, hey, like, let's just go get a gig. Let's just go play a gig. Yeah. So we ended up playing this, like, Monday night. Our friend Fax had this, like, kind of open mic.
It's a great name.
Night. Yeah. Fax After Dark, it's called.
Okay.
And basically it was like anybody can get up there and do poetry, like slither around on a canvas. This is at this really popular club called Lounge Acts.
I think I went there. I mean,
and of course the random band will get up and play a song.
Yeah, I've done those.
Yeah, so like we called Fax. We're like, hey man, we have this new thing, Pulsars, and could we like play a set at like this Monday?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, come, and like we're sandwiched between like, spoken word and like a folk singer or something.
Right.
And it just so happened that at the bar that night, a couple of local promoters from a big promotion company that does like the big concerts in the Chicago area were just stopping by to have a beer. And we just happened to be on stage.
Wow.
And they're like, who the hell are you? After our set, they're like, who the hell are you? Like, where do you guys come from? We're like, well, we're from Chicago. We played in this band. They're like, oh, we know that band. Okay, we heard of that band. Like, what, you guys want to play some gigs? And we're like, sure. Like, well, what about opening up for Blur? And I'm like, Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Next thing we know, we're open for Blur, we're open for Oasis, we're getting all these primo slots, because it was back then, being a two-piece band was not a norm. You know, like now you got a solo artists, a lot of like laptop bands.
We got Local H, right? Local H.
Yeah. So Local H was cooking around then too.
Right.
So, but like basically, it wasn't the norm, and they're like, "Yeah, this is great. You can just like set up in front of everybody. You don't have like a bunch of extra stuff." We went from like not giving a shit, and we never really gave a shit. We always saw ourselves as a disposable pop band. Which was like when we started getting these opening slots and started getting this buzz.
Right.
Accordingly, we had labels starting to approach us. So at the time, I was producing a band on Atlantic, and an A&R guy from Atlantic was there, and in Chicago, going around to different clubs, talking to people, like, who should I be talking to?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you're working with him. You should be talking to him, man. You should be talking to Dave. Dave has like this band Pulsars. So that kind of started it all. Like the labels started. Wow. We started basically fielding offers. It sounds cliche, but there was a bidding war.
And so eventually went with ALMO, and it was something like some crazy deal, like in the millions of dollars, 2 albums and an EP.
I mean, the way those are structured, like, it's a multi-million-dollar.
Yeah.
That's if you like do all the records. But so we had multi-records.
How does it really work out? Like, how did it actually translate for you guys?
We got a nice advance. We were like, to put it this way, like, my studio was one of the first studios in Chicago with Pro Tools.
Okay.
When it was a lot of money, and it was very much cutting edge. This is 1995. I got a Pro Tools rig. Wow. That was kind of part of the deal. I mean, part of us deciding to go with ALMO was a huge part of it was Herb Alpert.
I mean, the guy is a legend.
I was like, and the funny thing is,
he plays on this, right?
Yes, he does. And like, there was like a bunch of records I was working on back in the day. I was really kind of into like the twee indie pop scene of the early 90s as well. And like a lot of the records I would produce, I would do horn arrangements for, and we would do like a lot of flugelhorn and like very Tijuana brass, like Burt Bacharach, Tijuana brass type arrangements. So when we found out ALMO Sound was interested, they're like, well, what can we do? Like, to like sit down and talk. We're like, well, we want to meet with Herb Alpert. They're like, we can make that happen. So the next thing we know, we're on a plane and we hanging out with Herb Alpert. And
what was that like?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, what the hell's going on here? And we hit it off. And the funny thing is, he played me his new record at the time he was working on, and I'm like, wow, it sounds a lot like Jeff Lorber, which was a fusion guy from the 70s that I actually listened to a lot when I was like younger, playing in jazz band and stuff like that in high school. And he's like, oh my God, you have amazing ears. Jeff Lorber is the producer on this record.
Oh my gosh.
So we just really hit it off. We talked about studios, because A&M, like, they started in their garage, recording in the garage, ended up building one of the best recording studios in the world.
Which is in jeopardy.
Yeah, now it's Henson, and they're selling it. We hit it off. We nerded out.
Where'd you record this?
My studio in Chicago.
Oh, no way. Wow.
Yeah, so I've always had a studio. I've been kind of like... Yeah. I mean, even like when I was like a teenager, I was recording in my mom and dad's basement. And people would hear our demos and go, wow, can you make a demo for us? And next thing I know, I'm a record producer,
That's
like,
so cool, yeah.
Different bands were coming over all the time recording. But, we ended up going with Herb, and like part of it was... I was like, okay, Herb, if we signed with you, would you play on our record? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like,
my gosh.
Okay, where do I sign? Yeah. The nerd, music nerd part of me was like, I don't care what the deal is. Like, yeah, let's do this. But it was in turn, it was a really good deal. They offered us a really good deal. There were a bunch of other people bidding, so we navigated that with a lawyer and our manager and stuff.
Oh, that's smart. And,
back in the 90s, I mean, I know because I worked on tons of indie label stuff back then, and that's been kind of my career, has been in the indie world.
Right.
We got a lot of backlash doing a major label deal. It was not cool to do a major label deal in the 90s. So there was a little bit of like...
From who gave you backlash?
Just the scene.
Who cares? I mean, I get it.
Back then, it was a big deal. But because, we only put one 7-inch out.
Oh, okay.
And then the next thing we know, we got a major label deal. So people are like, what the hell? Who the hell are these guys? Even though like we cut our teeth for years in bands and put out a lot of 7-inches, and I recorded a lot of 7-inches for other people. And, you know, you don't just fall out of nowhere and get a record deal, you know, it's just not the way it works, you know, but from all outward facing, it seemed like that, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I get a lot of people, do you regret doing a major label deal? Because if you went with Merge or you went with this or that, like you could have like had a long career and all this stuff. And I mean, I've had a career in music my whole life. I mean, I haven't never not been doing music. But for the Pulsars, we were just like, it's a 3-minute synthy indie pop songs.
Right.
Indie rock, not indie as in like the label kind of like we're very influenced. I have to say we're influenced by, you know, you mentioned the Cars, but we're equally influenced by Pavement or any kind of like contemporary indie artist of the 90s, you know? So no regrets because I had the first Pro Tools. And we did have a lucrative deal and we didn't get the full amount of money, but we got enough, you know, to make it like way better than any other record deal. At the time we could have got, you know? It set us up. It set me up for my production career
and there's and like, you know, as well as, you know, more than anybody, like there's no guarantees.
No.
And so,
No, and that was like you said, like, hey, I never even heard of this. And we are a lost band from the 90s.
And I
you know, we are. I mean, I would say we're a lost band, you know?
Yeah.
Because like here's this funny story. It's not funny. It's just the way it went down. Herb and Jerry got out of the record business in the late 90s. We were finishing our second record and we get a phone. I literally got a phone call from Herb saying, hey, Dave, like, this is not the industry this is not the business we got into.
Right.
There's Apple Music was just starting.
Wow.
Napster just happened.
Right.
Was happening.
Right.
And they were like, this is not the business we got into. We got in the business of selling records, not files. And so they retired the label. So that's like we had the backing. We were out. This record came out. We were on the road with Weezer. And then a bunch of political stuff happened at the label. They left Geffen because ALMO was being run through Geffen.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
There was just a lot of like stuff out of our control that happened that like, you know, support kind of fell off and, you know, radio promotion stopped because of interworking back office stuff going on.
Okay.
Totally out of our control. It's like distribution and partnerships with other labels. And so we kind of got the short end of the stick on that, you know. We kind of went like that, you know.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And part of it was, you know, Universal absorbed it. And everybody on the label, Gillian Welsh, Garbage was on the label. Only a handful of artists on the label. Most of them went and got deals, but at the time I was really busy producing records as well. And my brother wanted to go back to college. So we just decided to bookmark it. And I moved here to Los Angeles. And at the time I just finished working with Wilco and My Morning Jacket, OK Go, a bunch of bands. So just kind of threw myself into like production and studio world. And what bookmarked for like, you know, finish up your degree, we'll come circle back.
Right.
Just never happened.
Okay.
Life happened, you know?
Right.
And what happened was Universal completely shelved it and never got...
This is the second record.
This record.
Oh, this record.
All our catalog never went to digital. It never went to streaming.
Oh, wow.
So this is the first time, November 15th, 2024.
Right.
It's the first time you'll ever be able to stream this on
like the major
DSPs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So this will be the first time this record will ever be available in the streaming world.
So how is it coming out now?
It's coming out through us. We've done it through a series of lawyers, letters. We got the rights back.
Okay.
In all practical purposes.
Right.
And we're putting it out.
Now, is it the same album or is it different?
Well, since we're able to kind of do it now without like the committee.
Okay. Yeah.
We went with the original cover concept.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the original one's the actual painting from Ralph Severson. He's the artist who did the robots. Those are vampire robots, by the way.
I love it.
But
digital is sucking our souls in a way. I mean, these things.
Yeah, totally.
They suck our time.
So we got to do a redo. We basically got to do a redo, and the multi-tracks do not exist.
Oh, what happened?
Well, there's Universal Fire.
Oh, that thing.
And
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at that. I'm just like, it's just like, what else?
The way we recorded this record was half analog, half digital.
Oh,
we
weird.
had 2-inch tapes and we had digital Pro Tools. And back then, drives were a gazillion dollars.
Right.
So we would back everything up on these AIT tapes, which are these like little kind of like a little bigger than a DAT.
Oh, okay.
But they're basically specifically made for archiving digital.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really slow.
They're really slow, and the tape formula they use got all sticky.
Oh no!
And we tried to get the data off these tapes,
right.
And there were errors, and they're incomplete. I mean, we have like partial masters. So the one thing that did survive is we had the two track mixes.
Oh, okay.
So, and we had like up to 20 something mixes of each song. As we were mixing, because this is back, when everything was on the board. And it'd be like, we'd get the song up and we'd go, hey, let's, label. Hey, give us a vocal up. Do a vocal up. Oh, there's that one sound. Can you do something with that one sound? And, so we really took our time mixing, put all these mixes off. And funny thing is, like, all the starred mixes, like, that we liked, weren't used. So for this version, they're all the same song, same sequence. I remastered it, and in some songs I use a superior mix.
Gotcha.
That I felt like
was the better. The one you want.
I would call it the artist cut, the director's cut of this record.
Okay.
We have a bunch of other material too.
I was going to ask, because there's like on the Wikipedia, there's that whole talk about a second album that was never released, and that has nothing to do with Lost Transmission.
No. So we literally have like 5 full-length releases in the bag. Yeah.
Are these like actually recorded at that time?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so from like 94 to 99, we were just constantly recording.
Oh my gosh.
We have 80 something like finished like mixes that like between our manager and us, like we feel like we can release this, So we actually sequenced 5 individual releases, and Lost Transmissions is basically the leftovers. And that's the first thing we put out, because their Lost Transmissions is like they don't really fit on any of the records that we sequenced. We have the original Reissue, which is where we are now. Yeah. And then we have the second album, and that never was released, was final mixed, not mastered, but I just recently mastered it. We have a third record that Harry and I actually got back together playing with William Reed from Jesus and Mary Chain.
Oh, wow.
Before the Jesus and Mary Chain got back together for Coachella.
Oh, right,
back in 2008 or so.
I remember that,
William was working on a solo record that I was working on with him. And Harry and I were the rhythm section for the record. And, and it literally turned into Mary Chain record. But, and with some tweaking and stuff. I mean, that record took 10 years to make. The record, the Mary Chain record, but like it started as a solo record. So Harry and I were the rhythm section, but like while we were like working with William, we're like, man, we should just start recording some Pulsar songs. We're set up. Yeah. So we made a third record that it's basically almost done. I guess got a couple tweaks on it. And then we have a covers record.
Oh, that's great.
And we have an ambient record. So part of like our early shows was we did in our first 7-inch, there's like, it's 2 3-minute pop songs and 2 ambient songs. So we originally, when we started the band, we wanted to kind of be like half ambient, half pop. Mm-hmm. So like we would play a pop song and then we'd go into this ambient thing for like 4 minutes and then come out of that and play like a 2.5 minute pop song and then go back. And so we have like all these ambient recordings that we've done over the years. So we're going to compile that into an ambient record. And then we have Lost Transmissions. Yeah. So that's got a lot of records. Got it, you know.
That's so
I mean,
cool,
that's what happens when you're a band for like, 6 years or whatever, 7 years. And like, I mean, what were the Beatles? The Beatles were like only together that long, right? Or something. And
I mean, 10
not comparing
10
us
years,
to the Beatles, but like.
I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned supporting Weezer on the Pinkerton tour.
Yeah.
And I think, did you mention that was kind of in support of your record?
That was, yeah.
So that was part, because like Geffen I'm sure had a hand in pairing you guys?
Yeah, totally. So ALMO was being run through Geffen. We were running all our PR, everything through the back offices of Geffen.
So,
and we had the same booking agent,
Gotcha.
And it was like a package Geffen tour, basically.
Well, like how many dates was that?
I don't know the exact number.
That's all right. Yeah, I was just curious.
It was definitely a couple months.
I'm sure it's on some site somewhere.
Yeah. It was like a big chunk of the Pinkerton tour. So
you got to know Weezer quite a bit. And that's an interesting time period for that band, because it almost was like the death of them in a way. Like, they got a lot of heat for that album.
Yeah. It was interesting being on that tour.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really know Pinkerton. I mean, it was a brand new record.
Right.
And there's this one song, I don't know if it was on the Blue. That song, Suzanne. I love that song. And like, they would warm up vocals every night. Suzanne.
Yeah.
All that I want is like you. And then like, they would like do all their harmonies and stuff. And like, that's what I remember from that tour, was like every night, like knowing when they were about to go on, I'd hear them singing Suzanne.
Is that kind of where the Rentals connection comes in from that, or no?
Yeah. Well, Rentals, I mean, obviously Pulsars, Rentals were kind of like very similar.
Right.
No, like Matt left Weezer right after that.
Right.
And like was focusing on Rentals. And then I moved to LA, and of course we met during the tour, but we reconnected like in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Like through our managers.
How funny.
It was like, like Matt was looking to work with somebody and get a new Rentals thing together. And my name came up, and we had lunch, and next thing we know, we're working together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The concept of like one-hit wonders, I think it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially if I look at like some of your contemporaries, like the Rentals being one, or even like Not a Surf.
Yeah.
But then there's like the concept of like the no-hit wonders.
Yeah.
Like that should have been, and like that's that's why I find your what you do in this band so interesting, is like, why didn't this hit, but then this like tons of disposable, I can't even, they're in one ear, out the next, kind of like, why did that get pushed and not, and
I mean, it's the music industry. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it's always been, I mean, I think Pulsars, I mean, this is just me, and obviously it's my band, but what I would wish would happen is we put this out, and a whole new group of people, fans will discover it, and that's where I could only hope we would be. Like, hey, like, have you heard this band? Like, and then like just have a whole new kind of fan base, hopefully,
Absolutely. I feel like the moment is right for something like that. I mean, I
think it aged pretty well. I mean, there's definitely some 90s-ism. Some of the guitar tones are pretty 90s, but that's having a comeback now too.
I mean, it's and
it's a weird record. I'm gonna say it doesn't really fit in nicely in any genre.
Right.
Like the Spotify algorithm is having a problem with it, let's just say. Because what is it? It's not 90s, it's not post-punk, it's not new wave.
Right.
It's not straight ahead indie rock. So that is an issue with being an original artist, I guess, in the modern world.
And then tell me about the history of the name.
Yeah, so we started this little fun project, Harry and I, and Harry was really into astronomy. Okay. And, like, he was considering like going to college for astronomy. Yeah. So he kind of kept throwing out like astronomy names. He's like, yeah, man, I think we should be called Nebula. I'm like, that sounds kind of like jazz fusion space rock band. Like, nah, I don't want to be jazz fusion space. Like, okay, like, how about Quasar? Like, well, that's like sounds like your blender or something, and TV, And then he's like, oh man, like, how about the radio star Pulsars? I'm like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And then boom,
you have your own label now.
Yeah.
So tell me about how that came about, like when that got started, and what you do now.
I've always wanted to have a label. I mean, Herb Alpert's not just. I mean, he's my hero for a reason,
Yeah.
And like, so, well, back in the day, like, I helped develop OK Go. Like, I basically saw them play a show, and said, hey, let's make a record, and that turned into a record deal, and that kind of happened. I'm like, I'm just gonna start putting out records I want to put out.
Yeah.
And even like stuff that I don't develop or I just stumble upon. Like one record I brought actually, Grey Factor.
Yeah.
Grey Factor. So that's on Damaged Disco. That's my label. This is actually the first vinyl we put out. Actually, no, this was the first vinyl.
Okay.
And then this is the second vinyl.
Okay.
We just started like 2020.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Grey Factor was one of the first pioneers of like synth punk, minimal synth of this is like in the late 70s.
Yeah.
But they were specifically in LA, and
you don't think of LA for that.
Yeah. And so they were way ahead of the curve. And a friend of mine, the singer, Jeff Jacquin, he's a manager of Moving Units, and I played with Moving Units for a while in the mid-teens, and met Jeff, and Jeff was like, hey, you should check out my band from the 70s, my synth band, and one thing led to another, and it was like, holy moly, this is great.
Yeah.
So basically, it's 2 EPs.
Okay.
They were recorded by Dave Jordan, who went on to record like Talking Heads and a lot of huge records over the years. Jane's Addiction, so this was like one of his like first records that he recorded.
Wow.
And it was never released.
No way.
Basically it's 2 EPs worth, like a 2 cassette EPs that we put into like one record to make it a full length. And it's basically their complete recordings, and that's what it's called. And that, that's what I really want to do as my label. I just really want to make stuff that like I really want. Of course, like I think most label owners are that, but like this was a prime example of something I was like, whoa, like we need to put this out and we need to do it,
Yeah.
So Damaged Disco. Developing a few new artists right now, some stuff that I'm involved with, but some stuff I'm just producing. So over the next few years, going to be putting out a bunch of new artists through Damaged Disco.
I go through your producing discography, and it's just like a who's who of just bands and artists. It's pretty incredible. And especially you get in so early, like you mentioned OK Go, you know, or even just Wilco.
Yeah. I mean, I worked on Summer Teeth, and Summer Teeth had a lot of synths.
Right.
And like I knew Jeff just from Lounge Acts. His wife owned the club, and I don't know why the synergistically we worked together was that, that was the record that they were kind of pulling out some synths and like a Shot in the Arm and like all those that's like my Moog source, and we were kind of on the same wavelength there for a second or something.
That's
and
cool.
then did like Mermaid Avenue with them. Like a lot of times, like I worked with this band Palace. Do you know Bonnie Prince Billy?
Yeah.
Okay, so his early Palace Brothers.
I don't know that.
Okay, so he had a thing called Palace. These are all Bonnie Prince Billy. He just changed his name every record.
Oh, okay.
But I worked like on the second one. This is in the 90s. They had Royal Trucks, the band Royal Trucks, which is like this very artsy indie band from like the 90s, be the producer.
Oh, wow.
I played bass, actually. I played upright. Dave Pajo from Slint was on it. And
oh, weird.
yeah, it was like a pretty eclectic session and a group of players. And they had Royal Trucks produce it. And like Royal Trucks, like they just sat and smoked cigarettes and said, do it again. Dude, okay, that's good. And then, or one of them would jump out and like go over the drums and like completely obliterate the drum take and go, okay, now it's done.
Yeah,
So it's totally different shapes and sizes, and that was just like, we like your band. Can you produce our single, and,
right.
And I was sitting there as kind of a guy who was a producer and engineer and like, I was like, okay, you guys are producing and like, I'm just pushing buttons, it was like pretty interesting session.
It is interesting though, when you're able to, for instance, Welcome to Paradise, Green Day, you can hear that original take and then you hear what that producer did to it.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes that's what it takes. It takes someone like to like hear something that's not there to, kind of like extract it in a way. And I feel like, if you look at the Beatles, George Martin, beyond sort of being like the sheepdog or whatever, like, kind of wrangling these kids together, he added that sort of, the sophisticated pop element to that chamber pop kind of element too, that.
Oh man, those early Beatle recordings, like all the Beatles, all of those are not early, but like, there's the blue compilation album, the red compilation. We had those on 8-track when I was growing up in my dad's Cadillac.
Yeah.
So I'm like, 8-year-old me is like, down, 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 down.
Yeah.
Down, 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 down.
Yeah.
And like that whole, like the way those records are put together and kind of the depth and tonality of like the recordings, just incredible, and like that orchestral approach that George Martin brought.
That discipline in a sense, too.
And like that has stuck with me my whole life, like making music, and it probably what kind of was like the gateway to like Herb for me, like thinking of music more on like this like orchestral arrangements, and kind of brought me to like liking Tijuana Brass and like what they were doing. And
did you ever get into the Baja Marimba band?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just had to ask. Like, it's like
Brazil 66. I mean, that's Herb's wife, one of the singers.
That's
Lonnie.
Amazing. R.I.P.
So, yeah. And so, growing up around those records and like just my dad's 45 collection, like like just hearing how records were put together, and some are super primitive, some are super dense, and like
like he taking away who he is, but Phil Spector, that is a sound, that is a thing.
Absolutely.
Earlier I was talking about, Let It Be Naked. I just kind of prefer that version of it, the unspectored version of Let It Be. Just because like by that time I don't know, it was a bit too much, and I don't think he understood the Beatles the way George Martin did. I would love to hear what George would have done with that album. But like he's like, even in the documentary, you can kind of see he's a bit hands off with them. Like he kind of comes in, but I think there was a discussion like, we want to do this on our own or something, Oh,
that documentary is insane.
Right? Yeah.
I've done a couple interviews and I mentioned it actually.
Yeah.
But like as a person in music, as a person that works in the studio or been in bands or as in the producer role, it kind of just completely solidified. We're all just a bunch of wing nuts. I mean, they were just like they were just like any other band I've worked with, like they did the little kind of like inside shit going on, and just like not really being prepared, like, oh, here's a little song I got, and like people go, oh, I don't like it, or like, oh, wait, like, like not really having like the game plan and just seeing it kind of unfold in front of your eyes, and like thinking like, I've been in so many sessions where I'm like, man, where's this going? What's going on here? And just feeling completely lost. And then like by the end coming out with something, creating something out of nothing, and just seeing the Beatles they're just like every other session that's out there, like they're not these gods from heaven coming down. They're human, and they're making human mistakes and like interplay between each other, and people getting pissed off and quitting, and
really, I mean, definitely humanized them. Even though like two of them are still around, but they're so iconic. It's like hard to remember sometimes that they were just young guys. They're all under 30.
Yeah. Even like Glenn Johns, like seeing like these old studio legends, and like how they you kind of I mean, it's just insane that exists. I mean, like, you know, the fact that like that was recorded.
That amount of footage. Yeah.
And I mean, I got to go back and watch it again. I've watched it twice, but every time I watch it, I get something new out of it.
It was also interesting too, like just for me, like sometimes with the mic placements and just like the type of equipment they're using and just the lack
and when
of
they built
separation.
The Apple studio.
Oh, down in the basement?
Yeah, and that was like, and that's like completely ramshackled. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, that's where they recorded? You know, like there's no treatments. It's just like bare wall. you know, like,
I mean, they had carpet at least, I guess.
Yeah. No, but like as a recording person, it just was like, it was very like validating and like that we're all just kind of trying to get the best thing we can do. Like it's like everybody's DIY, you know. It's like everybody's learning as you go, you know.
Yeah, because sometimes I think, especially if things don't go well or you feel like you're struggling, sometimes you like go like, oh, you know, this band, you know, they just have it all made. But when you see stuff like that, you realize, okay, everybody makes mistakes. No one's perfect.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of work to get this stuff done. People don't magic. I mean, even though these are iconic songs and players, like it still it took work to get there. Yeah. And it's like...
And like one guy saying the other guy's part isn't good or like to redo it. Like there were a few times where like, you know, Paul was telling George, like, I don't like what you're doing. Like you need to like do this better. And he's like, what do you mean? And getting pissed off. You know? And I was like, that's not pretty good to me, you know? Like,
can I have that? Yeah. I know. I just the thing. I just wish we had that for every session they did, but it was just.
Have you ever been to Abbey Road? Did you ever go?
Yeah, I was in the lobby.
Okay.
It was kind of not. I didn't really reach out ahead of time. I wanted to shoot the crosswalk, and then
I went and got the full tour.
Oh, nice. Point. Yeah.
Well, because I was actually gonna make this piano record, like a Piano Man record.
Oh, cool.
A friend of mine was going to make in London. And so like I was there, I play in a band called Mekons, and they're originally from
why do I know you? I don't know why. That's okay.
Yeah, Mekons, like they've been around since they're like original punk 77.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm the only American in the band and I'm the newest member.
Yeah.
You know. But so we were in London for a Mekons thing, and I'm like, oh man, I want to go see Abbey Road. Like really get a tour. So I basically said, hey, I got this piano record. I want to kind of see the different pianos. And we got to go to like, you know, all the different rooms with the upright piano, you know, like the Beatles room, which is Studio B or 2. I don't know what is it 1 or 2?
I think it's 2.
Studio 2. Luckily, the day we were there, like no sessions were going on.
Wow.
So it was like we got the full tour and got to see everything.
What does it feel like? Does it just feel like any other recording studio?
It's pretty, I mean, it's hallowed ground, you know?
Oh,
like,
I mean,
but like, it's kind of ramshackled.
Okay.
Like the walls and stuff are like pretty dilapidated vibe, like the treatment, like it's kind of dingy, like it's.
But you don't want to change it,
no,
because then you mess up the sound.
Of course, yeah. They didn't touch this like you know the tack piano, like it's probably the same way it's been since the Beatles, you know, or you know, I mean, there's definitely new stuff like in Studio 1, like the consoles are new,
right.
They had like the old EMI console in Studio 2 off to the side, but they had like an SSL, like a modern console. And then Studio 1, it's like one of the most legendary scoring stages, so they have a lot of modern stuff in there to accommodate like movie soundtracks. And then the one that really surprised me was Studio 3, which is very new. And I don't even know if that existed back in the day.
Interesting.
But we went and saw the mastering rooms, and they're like very, very basic, you know? Like, I mean, they're just like box rooms that like with a set of speakers and an EMI mastering desk and some, you know, I'm like, this is where like, this is what's going on. There's like no treatments or, you know, like a couple treatments, but like it was way more like stripped down than I was expecting.
Yeah, I still got to do that full tour. I still want to go to Liverpool and stuff.
Here's the secret. You're going to check it out for a session.
Right. Okay, then you get the legitimate. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
We ended up not booking there, but, you know, it was pretty pricey. It was a little out of the budget.
Yeah, jeez.
But yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. It's great meeting you.
You too. Yeah.
I just really wanted to be in this room.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks,
thank you all so much for watching. Definitely listen to the Pulsars. Check out their music. By the time this comes out, it'll be readily available, so you have no excuse. I really, truly feel like this is a lost gem that's finally getting to see its proper light and day. So definitely listen to them. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.